Leadership is me getting you to do something you don't want to do when I want you to do it. But I've created over 1 million millionaires. I've created $2.3 trillion in value.
What made you who you are now?
Fear.
Of?
My father. He beat them.
Exactly.
Just like my dad beat me. Okay? Tiger Woods. He beat him. Just like my dad beat me. It's not popular to be tough love. I'm the only one that predicted parity between the dollar and the pound in 1984. How did I know that? Because I'm a smart motherfucker.
Partnerem audycji jest Nikalab. Dobrostan, który zażywam codziennie. Dowiedz się więcej na nikalab.pl/Maciej. Hi, welcome to ZSZ, and today's guest is Dan Pena, who just came to Warsaw on a trip.
Yes, I did. I'm happy to be here.
But isn't being an entrepreneur making mistakes? And
not
being afraid to make decisions and making plenty of decisions.
Yeah, and most of the kids in America, Europe, wherever, are afraid to make mistakes because they want to fit in. They rather be liked than effective. They want to know why instead of the how.
But you don't care if you liked.
No, I don't care. In fact, if your audience likes me at the end of whatever this is, I didn't do my job.
Why?
Because I'm going to give them information. I'm going to call them. Most of the people listening to this are cowards. Even if they are trying to start a company, be an entrepreneur, they're cowards. Now, because of woke and stuff like that, I can't just call them a cunt but that's what they are. They're wusses. And they're more wuss today. I spoke 7 years ago at 2 Polish universities. Okay, and I thought they were wusses then. Okay, I'm looking forward to this afternoon. Well, I'm almost positive they're going to be more wussy than they were then.
I'm happy to get a text from you to find out what you think. Mm-hmm. But isn't it? There is this.
By the way, I don't carry a cell phone. I don't do texts. I don't talk on the phone. But that's just one differentiation. The big guys
don't have time for that.
Okay, no, the big guys don't do emails on their cell phones. Mm-hmm. They don't do their cell phones.
They don't do emails.
Okay, well, if they do that and they don't really delegate it, all my life is delegated to 4 women. My life is divided up into 4 parts, and they do everything.
What are those parts?
The parts are my personal life, okay? My active, current business life where I'm chairman of a company, where I'm advising the company, but I'm not part of the company, okay? And my leisure life.
What's the difference between leisure life and a private life in your
case? Because I don't have much leisure life. I went on this cruise that my wife gave me for my 79th birthday on this big yacht, and it was nice. But I haven't done anything like that in 10 years.
What's the feeling when you're on a cruise and you don't have to do anything, when you're so active?
Well, I couldn't have gone on the cruise if they had upgraded internet. So I was on the internet about an hour and a half a day, checking with those 4 people I just talked about, plus checking if I had emergencies on some of the 23 companies that I'm chairman of. And there's always at least one emergency of the 23. There's always at least one emergency. Or they think it's an emergency.
Lots of times it's the second, yeah?
Almost always the second. They have to write, and they tell me. They don't tell me. They tell the girl named Kat, who's in charge of that part of my life. What's the emergency? What are the 3 potential problems or solutions? Okay, and then she looks at it, and she either discards it and says it's not an emergency. She does. I don't. Or she sends it to me, and I look at it, and I say, and they have to pick one of the 3 solutions. And so then if I say it's worthy of me talking to them, and I'm chairman, I own normally between 20%, around 20% of the companies I'm involved with. Then they schedule a Zoom call, and we have a Zoom call. My children have to make an appointment to talk to me. They have to have an agenda, just like my companies. 32 years ago, I got 3 cell phones, the international capability. One for Asia toll-free, so I could be called, one for Europe toll-free, and one for the U.S. In 31 years, how many phone calls do you think I've received from my children?
I don't know.
0.
Why?
Because I want an agenda. I want the solutions to the problems, and they always know that whatever the solution is that's the hardest on them, that's the solution I'm going to suggest.
There is this saying that the strong men create good times create weak men create bad times.
Okay.
And I think we're kind of living through it right now. The great generation post-war created what we're having now, and we've been comfortable all over the world, especially all over the Western world. You're saying people are weaker and so on. The question I would like to ask you is how to be successful, and I'm not talking $1 million successful, I'm talking $1 billion successful. As an entrepreneur, what one has to have, but this is essence of what you teach effectively, what one has to have and what one has to pay to be that successful.
Well, there's a pay price to action. I'll use a couple of simple metaphors. We generally know that to lose weight, you have to have exercise and the right calories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's gotten more complicated than that now, but, you know.
I'm minus 25 kilos, 50
Pardon?
pounds, so I understand that.
Yeah, well, I'm 185 centimeters, it's called, and I'm 110 kilos, okay? And I've been this more or less plus or minus 5 or 6 or 7 pounds for 30, 35 years, okay? But, okay, so that's an easy one. If you want to run a marathon, you know, if you read and you Google, et cetera, you have to train more than if you're going to run a 100-yard dash or a 50-yard dash, okay? A different kind of training. And those are simple, okay? But if you're going to, getting back to the weight versus calories taken in, good calories, and exercise, how many of the bad calories are you willing to sacrifice not eating? Which are the ones that mostly taste good, okay? How many? I asked, you know, I was asked by Forbes magazine last year when I was interviewed, what do you attribute your success to, Mr. Pena? And I said, if I had one thing, the countless 100 to 120-hour work weeks I did, the countless number, I don't know how many, okay. You can get a lot more done in a 120-hour work week than you can in a 32-hour work week. I don't care. I don't care who you are, okay? So most people aren't willing to make any sacrifice. Now, you add that to the other part of the formula is now is the last generation and a half, the kids feel entitled, okay? They think that the world or somebody owes them. World or somebody doesn't owe them anything, really. But they think. So they feel entitled, added on to the fact that they don't want to sacrifice anything. In politics, I ran and lost in politics, an election here in the last few months. I told my constituents, there's only 3 ways to solve the problem we have. 1, tax, and nobody wants that. 2, reduce benefits, nobody wants that. Or print money. And if you're smart, you don't want that. And so I didn't get elected. Now the new party in Britain, the Labour Party, has said there's only 3 ways to solve the problem. And they're doing the exact same thing as I said.
After the election.
Yeah, after the They didn't say that. And in the headlines, I said there's going to be blood in the streets. Okay? What sacrifices are you willing to make? And so the little audiences would all go like this. But, you know, it's like we could solve the inflation problem worldwide in a long weekend. Okay? Let's say you have a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a long weekend. Better if it's Friday and Monday are holidays. On Thursday afternoon, you nationalize all the banks and you devalue all the currency 50%. Okay, if you had 1 million zlotys, now you got 500,000 zlotys. Okay? But no administration, no politician, no monarch wants their legacy to be that they halved the wealth of their nation. Cyprus has done it a couple times.
Poland's done it.
Okay, well, I didn't know Poland had done it. Poland has done it. But that's a tough pill to swallow. So let's start. You have to have major sacrifice to be hyper successful, super successful. That's number 1. You have to have, and only you can decide what that sacrifice is. The second thing is, that you're going to make mistakes. And it's easy to say, you know, make mistakes and make them quick like they do in Silicon Valley and stuff like that. But you have to not only be willing to make mistakes, but go out of your way to push the edges of the envelope. You have to try new things. You are who you hang around with. You're the average of the 5 people you spent most time with growing up. Sometimes that's a mom, full-time mom. Sometimes it's a part-time dad. Okay, sometimes that's an older brother or sister, or maybe even a younger brother or sister. Sometimes it's your next-door neighbor and maybe a grandparent. Now, what the fuck do they know about creating high-performance kids? Nothing. Nothing. So you're a product of your social and economic milieu. Okay? So most people are starting in the hole, in a ditch, not just because their dad digs ditches, but they have no chance. Now, there are exceptions to those rules. The Williams sisters, tennis. Tough love.
But the father was committed.
Yeah,
and
he beat them.
Exactly.
Just like my dad beat me, okay? Tiger Woods, he beat him just like my dad beat me. It's not popular to be tough love. My dad would be in prison today for child abuse, the beating kind, okay? There are a few people. Now, I've produced 5, 6, arguably 6 of those high-performance kids. I have kids, 13, 14, 15, making $1 million a year. When I spoke at Krakow University in 2017, one of my superstars was in the audience. And I'm talking to him, and I said, and I've got a kid here, actually he's a student here, who made 1.1 million equivalent of euros. Blah, 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 blah. And I said, would you stand up, Michael? He stood up, and the kids looked at him. And I said, you have anything you'd like to add to, it was towards the end of the seminar. He says, yeah. As hard as Mr. Pena makes it sound, it's a lot harder.
It is.
Okay. And he sat down. Now guess what? Not one single student went up to talk to him.
Why? Why do you think?
Because they're afraid.
Of course.
Same thing happened at Oxford. Same thing. I went through the same bullshit. I had a student in the audience. He stood up. But this guy made $600 million. Not one single student. They didn't even ask him his name. And it's worse now.
Son of Mexican immigrants, creating a life of his own, creating a company.
My mother came over as an illegal alien in 1924.
Yeah. I've read your story. I'm impressed. The question is, what made you who you are now?
Fear.
Of?
My father.
You were afraid of your father.
I just spent with my kid brother, who's 65, he's still my kid brother. He was on the yacht with me, and we spent my dad's birthday, he would have been 106, having dinner. And he used to say, Dad didn't beat me as much as he beat you. He just retired. He was the #2 guy in the 3rd largest fire department in the United States. So he was the 2nd guy. And he said that when we buried him, because we buried him in 2009, I was still afraid of him. I remember one time I was already out of the house because I was like a dad because I was so much older. He told my brother that he wasn't getting out of the house, so my father nailed him in like a coffin in his bedroom. They couldn't come out for 2 weeks. No food, no water, no nothing.
No toilet.
No, he had a toilet in his room.
Okay.
He had my old room, so he had a toilet. He had a toilet. It would have been better with no toilet, but he had a toilet. And when Vince, that's his name, tells the story, they can't believe it. They can't believe it.
So fear was your
fear.
driver.
Unfortunately, it's a shitty way to run a railroad.
It is.
But it still works. It still works. Oh, let me just stop. Okay. Siemens and Netflix in the last 2 or 3 years very quietly have instituted a new management style. It's called outcome solutions. Okay, what does that mean? You're a general manager of a division, and management deems that you should do 50 million euro or whatever in revenue during the year. And you say yes, and you committed, and you sign, okay, and a good portion of your pay package is whether you're going to do that.
Outcome.
Okay, outcome. They give you an outcome. They don't give a fuck how you do it, as long as it's legal. Now, I add legal, moral, and ethical. But morals and ethics swing in the wind depending where you are, okay? If you don't have a real rule of law, you're screwed. Okay, and then they see after 3 months, quarterly results, you're a little shaky, but it's plausible that you can still make it. The end of the second quarter, no way. If Jesus came down to help you, okay, and they have they call in Britain we're gonna have a quiet word with them, okay, and normally they either double up or double down. They double down and they say, if you can do this, or we'll let you exit quietly. You're gonna retire to spend more time with your family or whatever the fuck. That is the future. Outcome management. How successful is Netflix? Beyond your wildest imagination. Now, Siemens is big, but they make money by accident because they've been around so long. But another one that uses outcome management is Amazon. Okay? Never paid a dividend, he doesn't give a shit about the shareholders. He really does give a shit about the shareholders. And that's the future. That's for the world to exist.
But isn't it that entrepreneurs by design? They are outcome. But if they don't have outcome, they bankrupt.
No. Yeah, in the beginning, that's why 95 or 97 to 99, depending on what numbers you want to look at, companies fail the first year. I understand that. But sometimes then they go to friends, fools, and family to get money. Morons, basically. Okay.
But that's not entrepreneurship.
No, but they still that's where they get funded. You know, and 90% of the companies in the beginning go to friends, fools, and family. Friends, fools, and family, or in their little bit of savings, or they take out a mortgage on their house, or a second mortgage on their house, or their wives' in-laws, et cetera, et cetera. But most companies, people think because they have an idea. And I met with one of the most successful guys here in Poland since I've been here on a different subject. And he's got a 32-year-old daughter who went to Stanford, who is spoiled. I had to put a bullet in her head when she was about 25. She should have rolled down her mama's leg and one of those little things that didn't conceive. Spoiled beyond your wildest imagination, like in the movies, okay? But he can't say no to her.
Because he loves her.
Oh, I love my kids too, but I say no to them. I never say yes.
There are different kinds of love.
Well, tough love. Tough love. My dad invented tough love, okay? Now, but getting back to what I was saying. So this outcome management, the best companies, or not I won't say that, the most long and endure, Ford, Toyota, okay? The Toyota Way, the book, and I happen to be privileged to do some very good work with Toyota, and Ford for that matter, and the Japanese government. I'm getting off on a tangent. The part of the Toyota book, the Toyota Way, is to keep his employees under constant, manageable, accountable stress. That's exactly the opposite of the management styles that are taught today. Up until 4 years ago, Wharton, which I've had the privilege of speaking at, also University of Pennsylvania, didn't have a class on how to sell a business, how to buy a business. And the first things when I go to these schools and I ask them, how many have you had a class on how to buy a business? Nobody raises their hand. How many have you had a class on how to sell a business? Nobody raises their hand. How many classes have you had in leadership? Except for the Naval Academy, which I also had the privilege of teaching that, they don't raise their hand. So you can't sell the fucking thing. You can't buy the goddamn thing, and you don't know how to lead anybody.
So why are you studying?
Huh? They're not studying for that. They're studying because, as I did when I came back from the military, I had promised my mother I would come back and finish university because nobody in her family had ever graduated university. So, but that was like kissing my sister, me going back to school.
Why?
Because I was, you know how people always say, you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm always the smartest guy in the room. No, but I'm smarter than the professors. I was 5 times smarter than the students.
But then you shut up and then you talk.
No. They wound up letting me teach the classes.
But when you teach the classes, not many people survive the class.
Well,
only 11 of them, and one of them gets an A.
Okay, exactly. And that's life. Because, I mean, everybody that's listening to you, well, almost everybody, should be old enough to know life's certainly not fair. Certainly. Especially living here.
Life is not fair. Living here becomes very comfortable. I would say more comfortable than London.
Oh, well, I don't live in London, but I used to live in London. Yeah,
even UK, this is a safe, very fast growth country. And living here is extremely, extremely comfortable.
You got lazy.
I didn't.
No, but the country has, for sure.
We're probably not yet. We're not yet there.
Well, okay.
But that's a direction I would argue it's possible. We are a frontier country. That also makes a difference now. Because with all the geopolitics and everything and the war happening in Ukraine, that makes people think differently. But
well, I actually am one of the few people that actually had been in the Iron Curtain. I served as a young intelligence officer for United States Army Europe, which is part of NATO. And I went into here, Poland. I went into Berlin, East Berlin. I saw the countries that were flat with rubble. They had no buildings, okay? I saw Rotterdam that was flat. I saw Amsterdam that was flat. So I was there as a young guy. And I was in this city, Warsaw. It looked like a Armageddon movie, you know? And coincidentally, that was in the mid-'60s. Coincidentally, in the early 50s, I was here. My father was an Army officer who I traveled with him, and there was even less then because nothing had been built up in 51, by 51, 52. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. So I have the privilege of having deep hindsight into Europe, Eastern Europe, the old Iron Curtain, et cetera, et cetera. I've been in business in Russia. I've had where these guys that pontificate, these guys that do podcasts about opening up business don't have a fucking clue. They're reading somebody's book. You know, what are your you have children?
Yes, I do.
So do you have grandchildren yet?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Persuading my daughter.
Okay, what are your grandchildren? That's exactly what this old rich Polish guy that I spent the last couple of days with. What are you going to tell your grandchildren 15, 20 years from now? Grandpa, what did you do during the greatest transformation of wealth the planet has ever seen? Listen to podcasts, read books, do podcasts. If you did, or were you lazy and didn't take action? Now, in your particular case, you've taken action. But 99.99% of the people that are listening to this have done just the aforementioned that I just said.
But not everybody is afraid of their father. Okay, so the question is how to get that rocket up their knees and actually do something. Or is it? Maybe it's not possible. Maybe 99% of people.
No, it's one of my most successful kids is from Hungary, which is not dissimilar to Poland. He made 30,000 euros a year before he got rich, and he used to have to sell cookies at the malls to get extra money to buy Christmas presents for his kids.
Okay.
Fucking cookies. Okay.
At the malls during Christmas.
At the mall. Okay. You know how you see, he's not a gypsy, but at the malls. Now he lives in his 25,000 square foot house. And he's come to the seminar. He paid several times, but he comes to talk to the kids, you know, and he's only 41, but he's still a kid to me. And he says that, but I'd rather be dead. This, you know, I'd rather be dead. He calls himself the Hungarian Forrest Gump. That's what he calls himself.
Okay.
Okay? I would rather be dead to live another year like I used to live. When you have that kind of desperation, people come to me because of inspiration or desperation. They come to my site because of inspiration or desperation. A lot of them think they're inspired. They're not. They're desperate. But then you got to take action. And the steps that I clearly outlined for free, and I have for almost 20 years. But I've created over 1 million millionaires. I've created $2.3 trillion in value with accountants. 2.3 fucking trillion.
Were you ever desperate?
You goddamn right I was. My father was a world-class athlete, and I suffer from something called peripheral neuropathy, where the nerve endings in my hands and my feet are dead, more or less. I couldn't catch a ball. I couldn't do anything. And my God rest his soul, he'd look at me and he just, without looking like he was sorry for me, when I couldn't catch the ball, my football career lasted one play, and my baseball career, junior varsity baseball, lasted one game. One game. I blew both games for the teams because I dropped the ball.
And the teams didn't want you.
No. Even then, the coaches, God, they're roasting in hell, both of them. But they said, but I can work with Danny. I can work with Danny because he's the kid. If I can flip him, to be athletic, that would, But I said I gave up. I gave up in my junior year in high school. But anyway, because I wanted to be able to do something my dad didn't. My dad was a civil servant. He was a high-powered policeman for 30 years. Then he went for the government. Then he was a CIA assassin. It's well documented that he allegedly zapped a bunch of people for black ops. He used to be in charge of the sneaky trick department at Langley. He taught at Langley, which is the home of the CIA, when to shoot or when to kill. And my dad's philosophy was, when you're the only one alive and all the witnesses are dead, that's a clean shoot. That's a clean shoot. And it's well known, it's well documented. And so he did that for 40 years. And but I was afraid, I wanted to show my dad. I still remember him standing in the drawing room of my castle. And I've got my arm around him like this, and we're looking up at a Napoleonic chandelier, which still sits there. It's worth about, I don't know, $700,000 or $800,000, real crystal. And he looks up and he says, son, just tell me it's not drugs. Because he couldn't equate any way that I could make that much money if it wasn't drug related. And I said, it's kind of like drugs, Dad. It's oil and gas. Kind of like, and so, but he came for 3 weeks. He stayed 4 days. He felt very uncomfortable.
Why?
Because it was way out of his comfort zone. My mother died at the castle, never stepping in the castle. She didn't want to go in the castle. She died in one of the cottages outside. I've had relatives show up at the gate. Is Laird Peña? Yes. Just tell him his cousin John drove by.
And?
I don't want him.
Why do you keep your relatives at bay?
Poorness rubs off.
So does richness.
They've had 40 years to study my stuff. Actually, 50. And they haven't. Them coming and having tea with me isn't going to change anything. Although I let Guthrie's come. They make an appointment 8, 9, 10 months in advance. They come. We let them walk around the estate, have tea in the kitchen, not the drawing room or the library. But I'm very judicious with my time. Although I give away most of it now. I speak it, when I travel here in my plane or wherever I go, it's on my nickel. They're not paying for my hotel is it Raffles?
Raffles is a nice hotel.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, Raffles. I don't want anybody's money. I don't want to be beholden to anybody. I've only gotten paid for one speech in 50 years.
Which one?
It was one for, it was for the gold industry about 25 years ago. I spoke in front of a group of about 4,000 or 5,000 guys in Fiji.
Good place to make a speech.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, at that time, that I was a paid speaker, and I had never been paid. So I let somebody pay me $25,000, and I talked, and I was a big success. But then I found out afterwards at the bar, there must have been 300 IRS, tax cops, etc., in the audience. Because we're looking for guys that were
getting paid.
Yes, that weren't paying taxes. Wow. Yeah, and so I've only been paid one time. I'll probably never get paid again. But I've been a paid speaker.
You've been ousted out of your own company.
Correct, 2 or 3 times.
What's the feeling when you build something, you make it successful, you float it in UK, makes you a millionaire, and then somebody...
A lot more than that, but okay.
Makes you incredibly rich, and then you get kicked out.
Well...
What's that thought process or emotions that you have?
Not dissimilar to what happened to Steve Jobs when he got thrown out, and a number of other guys. But I refinanced the company the September before I got tossed out in the January. I was refinancing the company, and I wanted to leave with $100 million in the bank, et cetera, et cetera. If Saddam Hussein had not invaded Kuwait, I probably would have been there a few more years. But my biggest shareholders were the Kuwaiti Sovereign Fund. They own 29.9% of the company. And when they invaded Kuwait, everybody thought that the Kuwaiti government would have to sell assets to pay for the war. They didn't. And then when after the war, when the Allies helped them in the war or saved their butt, they thought they'd have to sell assets to rebuild Kuwait. And I knew, because I saw the numbers, bouncy, there was no way that they were going to ever have to sell anything because they had plenty of money. But I probably would have stayed. But the good news is I probably would have never coached if I hadn't gotten thrown out.
Why?
Because I had no, I have no desire to, then, I had no desire to help the average Joe. Okay. Only since I started doing it, and since I got involved, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a priest, and since the last 25 or 30 years, I got very involved with 2 or 3 branches of the Catholic Church, and I was supporting Saint Teresa when she was just Mother Teresa. So we support their orphanages. We also support Holy Family orphanages in Asia, Sri Lanka, Asia. I don't consider India in that Asia, but anyway, we built
India
missions.
is India.
Yeah, I understand that. And we built missions, etc., my wife and I. We put kids through school, and we've seen them, we've taken them from St. Teresa's through the Holy Family, which takes them up to high school, through university, to now they've got kids. Mm-hmm. So we've run the whole gamut. And so that makes me feel good. It makes me feel good. But now I've realized that the people that want to save the world, I've been beating my chest, not the whole 30 years, but about 20, 25 of the 30 years. You go out, I'll show you how to get rich beyond your wildest imagination. Then if you choose to change the world, then you can use all this money to change the world. And we've got some kids that have done some spectacular stuff.
There's a moment when you have so much money that the things you can buy stop giving you pleasure.
Well,
and helping people becomes...
You're putting words in my mouth. No, I don't believe that.
You don't believe that?
No.
But you've done... you teaching, you building missions, and so on.
Yeah. Other than occasionally when I mention it on a podcast, anonymously.
Okay.
I don't need to read about it in the London Times.
But you're not doing it from the vein. You're doing it from what? Not the vanity.
I'm trying to buy my way into heaven.
Can you buy your way into heaven?
Well, if there is a shortcut through spending money on the church, I'm on that short list. There's no question about that. I don't know many people that give more money. And the other mistake rich people do, and I was discussing this with this rich guy the other night at dinner. He's given the money in chunks. Mm-hmm. And I gave him 3 examples of well-being guys like him giving the money in chunks. And then whoever they gave it to pissed it down a rat hole. I don't give money in chunks. I give money every month. And if I don't see the results that we agreed on, then they don't get it the next month.
Outcome and solutions.
Correct. Thank you, sir. My whole life is that way. The only
So you're doing reverse subscription deal for the people you want to help?
It's a reverse subscription deal. Yes, it is, because I'm the one that's paying.
Yeah, that's why I said reverse. Yeah,
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you couldn't have been more right. That's correct. And so the Catholic Church, although we had a little bumpy roads the first 4 or 5 years, until I found the right person. Warren Christopher, the former Secretary of the State, who was a great lawyer. He used to be my lawyer at a big law firm. He said, Mr. Pena, a relationship, whether it's with a firm like ours or with a company like IBM, because I used to be close to IBM, or Toyota, is only one person thick, one man thick. He may have people or she may have people around him, but it's one person thick. And so that's the relationship you need to be concerned about. And so I finally found that the 3 people within the Catholic Church, all nuns. I had it with a priest, and then he died, a priest that I knew since I was a little kid. And he was like our family priest. Mm-hmm. He baptized the kids, and he did all that stuff. And then I found 3 nuns. And so these nuns One's getting long in the tooth now. One's almost 90. But the other two are in their early 60s. But they know how to get shit done. When they tell you it's going to get done, it's going to get done or they're going to die trying. Otherwise, like in a regular business relationship, if it's convenient, if there's something we can wiggle through in the contract and maybe not have to do it. Not with these, and I don't have any written contracts with any of the Catholic deals.
I want to talk about your seminars because you do them in a castle. Have a coffee. I'll have some water, please.
You know, I'm going to tell you too, Warren Buffett and Donald Trump, full disclosure, I know Donald. Donald Trump have two things in common. Neither one drinks water. Warren Buffett's children say, growing up, they've never seen a bottle or a glass of water to their father's lips. Warren Buffett, for about 30, 35 years since he invested in Coca-Cola, drinks a cherry Coke and drinks cherry Cokes all day long. Donald Trump drinks diet cherry Cokes all day long. Warren Buffett has the big triple burger from McDonald's.
He changes what he orders depending how the previous day
Well, I haven't heard
valuation.
that part. Okay, and Donald Trump. Now, Donald says he doesn't do it because Buffett does it, but it's interesting. But I don't like water because fish fuck in it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not a great water drinker.
Let's not talk about the most expensive coffee, what happens with it.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Coming back, have a coffee.
No, I can sip and listen.
Okay.
I'm not Polish. I can do two things at a time.
Krótka przerwa. Już za chwilę obejrzycie kilka spotów naszych partnerów, dzięki którym możemy tworzyć te treści i dystrybuować je do Was za darmo. Partnerem audycji są hostersi. Hostersi to SysOps DevOps House, specjalizujący się w projektowaniu, zarządzaniu i utrzymywaniu infrastruktur IT w trybie 24/7. Z nimi stworzysz wydajne i bezpieczne środowisko w tradycyjnych centrach danych i w chmurze obliczeniowej. Partnerem audycji jest Big Beans, najlepsza kawa i najlepsi baryści na Twój event.
Let's go this rat hole. What is it to be Polish, looking from outside? How do you've been here in the 60s?
When I was here during the Cold War, the joke was, how do you change a light bulb? One Polish kid with the light bulb and two turning the ladder underneath.
Or 4 turning the table. I've heard Polish jokes in US, yes.
Okay. That was a 66, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that filtered over into other parts of the world. Okay. And then when I came here on my own, and I saw people, in not the 50s, but in the 60s when I was here, people starving to death. They didn't have enough food, and nobody in those days would talk ill about, because Iron Curtain was still up. The wall hadn't fallen yet. And they wouldn't talk ill about the Russians.
It was dangerous.
Okay, they would just make maybe an ugly face, but they wouldn't say anything. They didn't want to go on record saying anything bad. Okay. Then I came back here after the wall fell, to Eastern Europe. And I did business in Moscow, St. Petersburg, in the Ukraine. I did business here in Warsaw. And then they would say something not nice about the Russians because they didn't feel the weight of that on them. But the people that got my message when I started 1993 coaching, the best, that understood you got to sacrifice something, were the former Eastern Bloc countries. Mm-hmm. They understood tough love more than the wusses in England or the pretty boys in France.
It is said that average GDP per capita in Poland will surpass UK's in this decade or early next. Can you see that? But, for a kid born here in the late 60s, this is for me, UK was always wow. And it stops being wow.
But the UK is not all that it's advertised to be. I mean, to an Eastern Bloc guy, I can see that. But from a United States guy, it's not, nothing like that. No comparison. The joke is, the U.S. Does something and the U.K. will catch up 20, 30 years later. Which there's a lot of truth in that. That's why when I came to the U.K. in 1981, September of 81, and my first big deal cratered. I lost all kind of money for all my partners that said that we failed. It took me 3 years to pay off all my bills. Then I came back in 84. But I found it easy to make money in the city, which is the financial district in the UK, because there was nobody that was aggressive. And I used to say, I'm an American. You can call me anything, but just give me the fucking money. That's what I used to say. Just like that to the banker. You're the banker. I don't care what you look at the numbers.
And give me the money.
Okay. I don't care what you think of it or what you think of me. Just give me the fucking money. If those numbers pencil out, just give me the fucking money. And they gave me the fucking money.
Because the numbers were good.
Yeah. And because I would never take no for an answer. Never.
So it was easier to give you the money than to resist.
Correct.
Coming back to my question. You've been here several times. You're doing business in Poland. Your book was published. How do you perceive Eastern Europe? It doesn't have to be just Poland, vis-a-vis the rest of Europe or US. In my opinion,
since Ukraine, you're afraid of a lot of stuff now. Since Ukraine happened, pre-Ukraine, you weren't.
That is absolutely true.
And so it's harder in that sense because do I have to keep money under the bed because such and such might happen? Okay, but before that. I mean, Poland was one of the best countries to do business in.
Fear, as you said, is a good motivator.
Well, fear is a good motivator, but not if you're going to put your money under the bed and hide it or bury it in the backyard.
But many Polish companies started actually doing business abroad or buying companies abroad. Actually, they start diversifying out of fear.
Well, you mean diversifying away from Polish business cycle.
Polish e-commerce holiday company just bought Thomas Cook.
Yeah, well,
a Polish company bought Thomas Cook.
The travel guy.
Yeah. A Polish travel online company just bought Thomas Cook. Can you imagine this 25, 30 years ago? That would be like, what the hell, yeah? I have a friend who sells farming equipment. He bought 3 companies in France. All he needed is a brand. He didn't need the production. He didn't need the employees. He didn't need even the customers, just the brand. They needed the brand to be recognized. And that's what's actually happening because of the war.
You mean the Ukraine, the current war?
Yeah, the fear. Let's not talk about war. That's what's happening because of the fear. So fear can be really motivating, as you said in the beginning.
At the end of the day, fear is false expectations appearing real. I mean...
that's beautiful.
It is. 99% of the people that have been successful through my program in 31 years, I'll say the same thing. 95% of the things that we worry about as mortals, regular people, as Mr. Pena says, beating his chest, don't happen. Doesn't happen. And 95% of the worries you have don't happen. They just don't. There's a big bugaboo in America about your credit card score. You can, that's all bullshit. It's a myth. Whether you have a 400 credit card score or 800, you can still borrow money at the goddamn bank. Another even bigger myth is about bankruptcy. Okay?
That is going to ruin your life.
Yeah, well, that's bullshit, and I'm not suggesting to anybody that's listening to this, I have a double murderer from Southern Florida who's one of the biggest healthcare providers in Southern Florida now. He got out of prison, did his time, society, blah, blah, blah. This was in the 90s, and he's Cuban, and he killed 2 people, okay? And when he got out, are you remorseful? No. I'd do it again. And since then, I've told him that's probably, you could get away with not saying you do it again. But he said, Mr. Pena, part of the QLA thing is not to lie. I says, don't put the shit back on me. You got to be smart enough.
So there is a limit.
There's a limit to most things. But it depends how how much you want it. And e-commerce is, and my wife and I were some of the first e-commerce people before the .com blew up. We were the 7th or 8th largest advertisers on Google. We used to make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a day on AdSense until they changed the algorithms. And so we know a lot about that. And we were big e-commerce people up until about 2015 when we sold out. But e-commerce has made it so almost anybody can compete. Maybe not at a high level, but you can make $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a month. I mean, scratching your ass on e-commerce, and so it's let the little guy in the door, albeit in my opinion the back door. So e-commerce has gone a long way to help a lot of people that wouldn't have, there's countless women, I say women, but there's countless people that use e-commerce as a second income to their husband or their wife that is the main bread earner for their family, the extras. And the stuff that, and now, of course, Amazon shows you the way to use Amazon, so all the steps you can use, and Facebook to sell products. So that's been a revelation. And as Warren Buffett says, he missed that. He missed the internet, e-commerce, because it wasn't simple enough for him. I went to their annual meeting 2 years ago in Omaha, Nebraska. Hadn't been in Omaha in decades, and it was interesting to see you talk about fear. Now, just listen to this. For those of you that have not been to an annual meeting for Berkshire Hathaway, and it's not online.
You have to be there.
Yeah, I have to. And so, the only thing that we own other than cash, my wife manages a small portfolio for our grandchildren. Part of that small portfolio is Berkshire Hathaway. So we went. Every 50 feet, there is a security guard with an automatic weapon in the room, in the building. 35,000 guys there and gals. Every 50 feet, automatic weapon. Okay? The president should have the kind of security Warren Buffett. Well, of course, now they try to shoot Trump. The president should have the kind of security Warren Buffett has. Now, why does Warren Buffett, the Santa Claus of life, supposedly, which he's not, by the way, have this kind of security? If you're going to vote, and they encourage all the shareholders to vote, if you're going to vote no, you have to go to a different auditorium, a mile or two down the road, and in front of a big screen with security again, if you're going to vote no on anything. He's already chosen his successor about 4 or 5 years ago. His successor is a Canadian exploration guy, oil and gas exploration guy. The last bastions of gunslingers, in other words, shoot, aim, etc., are oil and gas guys, explorationists, and that's what he is. He managed their energy portfolio terrifically, and he will be the next CEO. Now, when Charlie Munger was still alive when we were there, they asked a question from the audience. Mr. Munger, do you think that the board of directors will adhere to such quick access to making decisions as they do to you and Mr. Buffett? So he turns to Warren, and Warren answers the question, and Warren smiles and says, no, I don't think he'll have the same access to quick decision-making. But he's turning it over to, one, oil and gas isn't going away, kids. If you think that, I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. Oil and gas is never going away in your lifetime, in your kids' lifetime, and probably in your grandkids that you don't have lifetime.
There's a very good Czech writer and a professor. He escaped from Czechoslovakia, Václav Smil, and he writes about energy. Bill Gates was actually recommending his books and so on. I read them. And that's exactly what he says. You need, in order to build energy transformation from one source to the other, be it animals to steam, steam to oil, and so on. Oil to, was supposed to be atom, didn't work, nuclear, now renewable. you actually building.
Need it.
You need energy to create this.
That's part of it, but he's absolutely correct.
And he was showing actually anthropological data from mines in England where people had their spinal cords and bones deformed because they were physical labor. The muscle was bringing the coal out to get the steam working. That's how it worked. Yeah, so it's gonna take.
Oh, it's like Keir Starmer, the new prime minister in England. He said that it's gonna. They've got a 10-year program to make up for infrastructure, etc. I'll say
10 years.
No,
it's like a second.
No, but that's a lie. It's not 10-year. 10-year will take the planning. It's 25 to 50 year, if ever.
And our energy networks are not designed for They are designed for distributed consumption.
Correct.
But point production.
Correct.
They're not designed for distributed production.
Do you know why Elon Musk wants to go to Mars? The real reason?
To save humanity?
Fuck, he doesn't give a shit about humanity. I mean, if you're that, I'm hoping that this audience is smarter than that. Okay, Elon Musk, there is not enough dolomite. What's the thing that you make the batteries with?
Lithium.
Lithium. Excuse me, not dolomite. I'm thinking about something. Lithium on this planet to fund more than to use more than a fraction of the electric cars if we went electric. Supposedly, Mars is almost all lithium. That's the real reason he wants to go there.
There's plenty of iron there and other elements.
Well, no, but I mean, we don't have enough. There's not enough PowerPoints. The math doesn't work. If you knew what I know about the world reserves of oil would go to $5 a barrel today.
If we
knew how much real reserves are. There's a reason why Aramco, which is the national oil company of Saudi Arabia, doesn't make their numbers public. It's a guesstimate.
It's scarcity is good.
Yeah, well good.
For the ones who...
OPEC used to really be a force for governing the oil industry. It's not anymore. Used to be. And Venezuela, if you believe the Venezuelan numbers and some of these, give me some of the stuff. Let me take some of the drugs as long as they're not addictive. Let me get high.
But Venezuelan oil is extremely thick and it's very hard.
The viscosity, correct. Yeah. But I mean, there are methods now, secondary and tertiary methods to thin it out. I mean, that used to be an excuse back in the 70s and 80s, but it's certainly not one now. It's certainly not one now. I mean, some of the brightest guys on the planet are working for these big companies. Now, I find it ironic, if I could think of another word other than ironic. SpaceX is going to save the 2 astronauts that are coming back in February. SpaceX. Boeing, although they were able to land the capsule without the guys in it, okay, but Boeing has got, when I say rocket scientists, I mean it in a positive way, the brains of all brains, okay? But SpaceX has better brains of all brains, and they're going to send, a SpaceX thing up there to pull them back in February, if they're still alive.
But there is a thing about SpaceX, and I'm happy to go that rat hole now. They are using software techniques for hardware development, so they're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid. The rockets blew up more often on the beginning than they flew, and nobody ever done it this way. Is this the new way of entrepreneurship?
Yes. Well, speaking of that, do you realize if it wasn't for 2 $500 million grants that Obama gave Elon Musk would be an asterisk?
We wouldn't know.
Correct, because
he tried, he failed.
Yeah, but this one made it. The other 500 million, although Elon is quick to retort, I'm told, I haven't heard him say this in front of me, that the 500 million he borrowed, he paid it back with interest. Okay, but that's not the 500 million that went bankrupt. He's talking about the 500 million that started or assisted him in going forward with the SpaceX. But he's a classic example of a guy that wasn't worried about failure. Another guy that wasn't worried about failure, and he wasn't even worried about if the shit worked or not, was Steve Jobs, which I had the privilege of working with back in the 80s. I may be the last guy to see Steve alive. Sally and I were in Bangalore, India, running our business there. And Jack Welch, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, amongst others, say the smartest people on the planet today come from southern India. Okay, which I would tend to agree with that. So we're in a private club on a dance floor, and Sally and I are dancing. And Sally says, "Dan, isn't that Jobs over there?" And he's standing by himself in the middle of the dance floor, with his eyes closed, dancing by himself. This was about 11 o'clock at night. 2 o'clock in the morning, the club's shutting down. The general manager comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, do you think you could ask Mr. Jobs to stop dancing because the club's closed?" "What are you asking me for?" "Well, you're the only one that's talked to him since he's been here." And I said, "No." So Sally and I left, and last time I saw him, he was still dancing. He died a couple days later. Okay. But if there was a way around, this is just one man's opinion, although I've got a lot of information. If there was another way to beat cancer, Steve would have found it.
He tried everything.
He's tried everything, and he had plenty of money to do it.
And for pancreatic cancer, he lived very long.
Yeah, he did. He did. And but I've seen him try to throw a programmer out a window. I've seen him beat employees. It's the guys that I don't revere. Elon Musk. Sleep on the floor, but they don't want to make the sacrifices those guys made. That's the difference. They revere, and Steve Jobs has certainly changed the world.
But they revere the results, the artifacts they created, not the forging process of creating them.
Exactly. It's just like Henry Ford I killed people. I mean, Rockefeller killed people, these guys. But if it wasn't for men like that, the United States, the Industrial Revolution, et cetera, and they had equally the same kind of people, they want everybody to be like Tesla, the original Tesla, the Serbian guy. I don't think he ever killed anybody. And he also died dead broke.
He was obsessed with his invention.
Yeah, but he's smart guy. Smart is not, it transcends being smart. Whatever the word is.
Genius.
Yeah, well, I'm supposed to be a genius, but I'm not that kind of genius. I have a high IQ, and one of the things...
You're very smart. He was a genius.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
Yeah, that's good. I'm comfortable with that. But when I was going to, were asking me what drives me, I'm a fear of my dad. When I used to go to school, right now we support the grammar school I went to, the junior high school I went to, the high school I went to, and the university I went to. Okay, we all give scholarships. And my school that I went to, Doris Place, which is in the hood in the barrio in East L.A., we just recently found out Marilyn Monroe went there 19 years before I did. And so it's going to have its 100th anniversary next year, and we're planning a bunch of stuff. But every day, at least 2 or 3 times a week, I was in the principal's office before noon, getting hit. Okay. Corporal punishment didn't end until 1963. I am the official last person in the state of California to get beaten legally in May 1963. Moi. Okay? By a guy named Hank Leeds.
You remember that.
Oh, may he roast in fucking hell. They gave me my diploma and said, get off 3 weeks before graduation. Get off campus. We don't want your kind here.
Your kind meaning...
people like me.
Okay.
There was 2 of my best buddies were there, but people like me, okay? But getting back to the grammar school, when I was 10, 11 years old, I tried to kill my teacher. They used to call me a hellion. Hellion, yeah. I don't know if they use that word anymore. But I was always doing something wrong.
Hellion as the one that raises hell, yeah?
Correct. And I didn't really think through about whether the teacher was going to die or not. But they transferred me. They threw me out of the school district, not the school district. And I had to go to the valley, San Fernando Valley, which were all, they raised hay and beans and shit. There was nobody out there then. Now there's 2.5 million people there. And I went to school there. And then my mother finally decided it's not the environment, it's Danny. And that was a tough pill for her to swallow. And she's the kind, and she saw me shoot somebody in the head. Oh, my baby, my baby. And my older aunts that have all died now, 20 years ago when they were meeting my wife, 25 years ago, they all said what an angel I was. Yet my cousins, my contemporaries, you know, if Dan was an angel, then we're popes. Because, I mean, he was always in trouble, because I was.
Dan, you're coming from a military father background.
Correct.
From immigrant family, illegal immigrant family even, I would say, in a halfway. Being a hellboy who raises the hell. What happened that you went into business and changed you? The 5 people that you know, the inner circle that actually made the change possible?
I got away from that inner circle.
So you got away from that.
I joined
so it wasn't only Danny.
No. I volunteered for the draft at the height of the Vietnam War.
Okay.
Okay.
Where did you serve?
Well, I served at NATO here.
Okay. So you didn't go to NAM.
No. 140 in my class. 106 graduated. 6, and only Allah knows why. 6 of us were chosen to come to NATO.
Okay.
100 went to Vietnam. Okay. 6 of us would come to, when we were officers, when we finished officer school. And I came here, and I came in 1967. In fact, Sally and I were just there last year. We stayed at the Frankfurter Hof.
And it was Army, yes?
Yeah, I was in the Army, and they had no place, typical military decision-making, they had no place for a young, single officer to live. So they put me in a suite at the Frankfurter Hof in Frankfurt until they figured out what to do. So I was there 3 or 4 days, and I got $35 American per diem a day for being in a foreign country. Well, $35 a day in those days was big money. I mean...
in Germany, yeah.
Yeah, it was big money. And then they decided to send me to a place called Zweibrücken, which is in Germany, and I wound up being the youngest company commander in NATO. I was 22 years old, company commander. And I had a driver, and so I also saw the other side of life. I saw embassies. I was attached to 2 generals, okay? And I saw there can be another kind of life. Although when I signed up for the military, I wanted to be in the military because I liked it. I liked the discipline. I liked the beatings. I liked giving beatings, okay? But I enjoyed getting beat.
Why did you enjoy it?
I don't know, because I was used to it. My dad beat me like a rented mule.
Because it came from home.
Yeah. And when we were the first few nights in boot camp in California, guys are crying for their mama and pissing their pants and shitting their pants, and they're so afraid. And I'm screaming, "This is nothing. You should have lived with me, you cunts." I mean, this is like a country club, because it was.
So how different was Southern California to Germany, to you?
Well, Southern California, I was looking to get in fights, to rob somebody, to do something, to break into something.
And then Germany?
I flunked out of university 3 times, okay? And then I went in the military. I for the first time, I began to realize I really was smart. I was just a fuck up. Okay, I sat in school in the back row asleep for 12 years of education. The only thing
because they were boring.
Well, I didn't look at it that way. That if I got any education, it was by osmosis. It was because my eyes were closed and somehow it got through my ears into my brain. I graduated with a 2.55 average out of 4, which is like a C+. I never took my books home. I never did one homework assignment.
But you passed.
But I passed because, well, except for 3 teachers that I had, and I just had my 60-year reunion a few weeks ago. 3 teachers that I had, actually 4. 4 teachers that I had in 12 years of education, I considered my equal. 4. When I was 5 to 17 in age, I had 4 teachers. 3 in high school and 1 in grammar school. I had 4 that I thought, you know.
I could have a conversation.
I would piss on their face if it were on fire. The rest, I wouldn't.
So the Army helped you?
Oh, it didn't help me. It turned me around. Made
a
man out of me when I passed all the tests, and I asked my dad, they say I can be an officer, and he said, well, it's your choice. A longer commitment, I had to sign up for 2 or 3 more years, et cetera, et cetera. The guys that I were hanging with before, fuck, are you crazy? 3 more years of the government? They didn't, and I'm not even sure if they had the opportunity. For sure, they knew that I shouldn't do it, but I did it. And
your father was proud of you.
Oh, of course he was. Yeah. He said he loved me when he was 88 years old.
First time?
First time. Only twice. Only two times.
Your voice just broke when you were talking about this moment when you passed the exams, yeah?
Yeah.
A lot of emotions?
It did break, yeah. Still do. And so I became an officer, and then I became a superstar. I was a 5%er. I had jobs that they were giving to colonels. They gave to a lieutenant. I excelled at everything. I was a fucking rock star. But then I went to the bar, and General Von standing there, General Atterbury standing there, and I had just gotten a big award for saving NATO a bunch of money about computers, which I knew nothing about. And General Von says, a 3-star general, Danny, a young man, no, he says, you're buying the drinks, Danny. You got the big award. Anyway. And so I said, it's not such a big award. It's a $50 war bond, General, but I'll buy the drinks as long as you want me to. And so then he says, but a young man like you could get rich in the civilian world. A light bulb went off in my head, over my head. Like God tapped me in the skull.
It's the people that are around you.
You're the average of the 5 people you spend most of the time with. And he says, Danny, you could get rich. I was out of the Army in 6.5 months, excuse me. I was out of the Army 6.5 months.
And you finished university?
And I went back to university, and then I went to Wall Street, and I made a fucking ton. Making a lot of money has never been hard for me. Never.
Cześć przedsiębiorco. Jeżeli chciałbyś dotrzeć do takich widzów jak ty, napisz do nas, skontaktuj się z nami pod adresem partner@ztz.media. Chętnie porozmawiamy o komercyjnej współpracy i reklamach na kanale ZTZ.
Once you figure out how to make money, it's a nature, it's not a skill, isn't it?
It's 85% personality, 15% knowledge.
And hard work.
Well, no, I mean, personality is hard work, 100-hour work. Okay. And the kids don't want to hear that.
There was an episode I've read about internet, about your castle, when one of your employees was skimming the customers in the wedding settings, and you decided to actually pay for that. And I was wondering, and it was...
I put him in jail first.
It was 135,000 quid or something like this, or dollars.
135,000 pounds.
Yeah.
He pocketed.
And but you decided to pay for him, and I didn't.
Not pay for him.
Return the money to the people.
To the dipshit customers, yeah.
Because they were customers of yours.
Correct. They weren't his customers, they were my customers, so I felt obligated. And not legally. Legally, I didn't have to pay anybody anything. Because he had triple billed. In other words, he had 3 weddings at the same time, same place. So not only did it cost me money that I had to do the weddings again, but I had to make time for the weddings because that space slot,
was taken.
That time frame was already taken by somebody else.
How did you feel when you were violated like this?
More angry than I told BBC.
What did you tell BBC?
I told BBC that I forgave him.
And the truth is?
Part Sicilian, I never forgive. Never.
Okay. What's your superpower?
Communication.
I've seen some of your recordings when you do seminars. You scream at people. That's a good communication.
Well, in the 90s, I hit them. Literally. In the 90s, I hit them.
That wasn't recorded.
Yeah, and if you go down to London and people that have been there a long time, I will neither confirm nor deny whether I've choked a few investment bankers. If you're an investment banker,
but people pay you to come to your castle for a week's
and I whip them
seminar,
like a dog.
And you whip them
like a savage dog, not a regular puppy. You know.
Yes, that's I was because
make it sound better.
Dogs have it better.
Yeah, at my house, the 5 dogs have it. I should live like they do.
Yeah, you actually tell people to shut up, that they're stupid, and so on. Where is there a good communication in that, if this is your superpower?
Because, see, leadership is me getting you to do something you don't want to do when I want you to do it.
So you use emotion. You use emotions.
Okay, well, there's nobody on the planet better at than I do. that I am.
You're using fear.
Fear works. And all the big guys, Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan, Cook of Apple, Elon the Musk, Warren the Buffett. I mean, they all use it. The difference is I don't hide. I'm not trying to portray a legacy that's not me. They're all building their legacy. You know how the presidents of the United States, towards the end of their term, they're building their legacy and they're raising money for the library. Okay. Well, all the big guys do that, except I don't, because I don't give a shit.
Why you don't give a shit?
I don't care, because it's not. I'm going to be dead, number one.
We all are.
We're all, you know. But if I'd write a check, if somebody could convince me through proof, through I'd write a check for $100 million now on your podcast if I'm going to live forever.
I have a bridge in Warsaw for you.
Yeah, you know, and so
it's better than the one in Brooklyn.
Yeah. The Brooklyn one's been sold. Could I have some more coffee?
Yes, of course. Let's have a.
Are we having a?
Let's have a small break. I think it's extremely important that people who are around you, that you choose, not accidentally. Like you were talking, that your neighbors are not, unless you're living in Silicon Valley, as Jobs was living and could. Talk to
I can speak
HP
to that.
founders.
I can speak to some of that.
That general changed your life with one comment when you were having drinks.
And I've reached out since I turned 60 years old. I have I've successfully, with one or two exceptions, actually two exceptions, gone back and at the very minimum thanked, and in some cases financially aided people that helped me when I was getting started. Okay. And I went back to the generals, okay, Woodrow Vaughn's family. His grandson, who was a very successful lawyer in Atlanta, Georgia, I wrote him, thank you, I tried to get a hold of the general's son, but his general's son is a little older than I am anyway. Maybe he doesn't read email, but his grandson responded to me, and he said that his dad, or excuse me, his grandfather, he had an eye for talent, and he named one other case, Sandra, the first woman on the Supreme Court in America, Sandra O'Connor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good movie about her as well.
And he picked her to do something back in the Army. But when I was with the Onassis group, I was the only non-Greek in the hierarchy, and the CEO of, we're getting back about people you surround yourself with. Costa Gratsos, who was the CEO of Onassis Group after Mr. Onassis died. Onassis died before I got there. He said, you all remind us of Aristotle Onassis. When I was with Ford, they said, you all remind us of the old Ford. Okay, when I was with Toyota, you all remind us of Toyota. Okay, and when I got to speak to some Japanese, just for that, because there is when I was with Anheuser-Busch, I reminded them of, because there's something that I have.
Is it being a rascal?
Well, I don't know. Those guys got into business. I didn't figure out that I wanted to be successful in business until late. I went to Wall Street where the action was, and I got involved, and I saw people that were not the dingleberries that I missed wiping my ass, making tens and hundreds of millions. I wouldn't piss on these guys' faces if it was on fire. And then one of the very senior guys, God rest his soul, Ace Greenberg, one of the guys, he says, Danny, and I went to, it was a Jewish firm. They don't call it a Jewish firm, but it was a Jewish firm, and now owned by Bank of America. And they said, you've got real talent. I mean, because I can get people to do shit you wouldn't believe. You know that
So he told you to start your own company?
Huh?
He told you to start your own company?
No, he didn't. No.
So where was that moment that you decided from trader who was making shitload of money to become...
I decided to, when I got thrown out of the one company that I had two partners, in January 1982, and I founded the Great Western, in February 1982, and but I had a company when I was still on Wall Street, because I was phasing out of Wall Street. Because at that time, unless you're the CEO or the very senior partner, which I'm not political enough, okay? Because I tell the CEO, go fuck themselves. I tell anybody.
Too direct, aren't you?
Yeah. And so I went off on my own. But so when I started legitimately all by myself, it was February 1982, okay? And I took that, and one of the things I'm going to say this afternoon in my talk is I made 1.5 billion złotych in 1 hour.
Mm-hmm. Doing what?
I took something I didn't own, public on the London Stock Exchange. I'm the only person that has ever taken an option. You can take an option on a building. Here's $50,000. I'll come back with $2 million in 90 days. I'm not taking an option. I took an option on oil and gas property in the United States.
On a field?
Yeah, multiple fields for $60,000. I had a 6-month option. And within those 6 months, I took that option that had, I believe, if I remember correctly, 21 million barrels of non-producing, approved reserves but non-producing, public on the London Stock Exchange. My timing was perfect because the North Sea had just been discovered to save Maggie Thatcher's regime from going bankrupt. And one of my board members, again, the guys you surround yourself, was the founder of the North Sea, Bob Dyke, was on my board. He was a founding director, okay? He had 2% of the company. Until then, his name was Dry Hole Dyke. He drilled 88 dry holes in the North Sea, but his 89th was the North Sea at Argyle. And he used to say, I've never met anybody in the oil and gas business with more integrity. That was worth $1 billion.
Why did you choose London, not
because
New York?
I didn't have a field big enough to take public in the New York Stock Exchange.
Okay. So you went to the smaller brother.
And they were exploration crazy because oil and gas had just saved Britain from bankruptcy. Do you know during COVID, the Bank of England came within 100,000 pounds of going bankrupt?
But I didn't know that. There is a very interesting story because that same field is also in Norway.
Yeah.
They're sharing it. What Norway did with this money, they created the largest sovereign fund
I know.
in the world.
I advise it. I know exactly.
What United Kingdom did with this money, they consumed it. They effectively consumed it. And you see after years that I think Norway did a better decision.
Well, yeah, they did a better decision.
For the next generations of Norwegians.
No, they did a better decision based on the personality profiles of Norwegians versus Brits. It was all based on personality profile. The Norwegians, the Swedes, the Danes, and a couple others would rather be taken care of from womb to the tomb.
Mm-hmm.
The Brits don't want that. They say they don't want it, but they cry
when they don't get it.
Correct.
But they vote like they don't want it.
Yeah. But when the Norwegian Sovereign Fund came to interview me the first time, they interviewed people when they first went over $1 trillion. This is about 6, 7, 8 years ago. Obama, Clinton, you name it, all these guys, for 2 hours. They stayed with me 2.5 days, sucking my brain. And I still remember the guy, and all these guys look young to me. But anyway, you look young to me. And he says we're having dinner in the castle, and he says, some of these things will be really hard to sell. They're really way outside the box. And I said, I'll be glad to come and sell them. Oh, no, then it won't be our project. And anyway. And so they only implemented 3 things that I suggested of the 30-some. There's a video online about it. And they bleeped the fuck, shit, and that stuff out. But they played to their base, that personality. And I don't know where all the Viking blood went, but it's certainly not around anymore. And so they play, like the first thing I'm going to open up my talk this afternoon to the university students is a little film clip, 2 minutes long, 1638, the Battle of Vienna, when the Polish beat back the Ottoman Empire and saved Europe. Okay.
And not many people remember that.
Yeah, well, hardly anybody does. But anyway, so it's a cute clip. The father is sitting near the king. He looks over at his son, who looks about 15. Are you nervous? Scared? No, Daddy. Or Papa, I think he said Papa. He says, that's all right. It's your first charge. You'll get used to it. And they, go riding down. But we don't have those kids anymore.
We do.
Okay, well, they're few and far between.
But they are.
Yeah, okay.
And they will change the world.
No, the world's not going to last long enough for them to change it. But anyway, that's a whole...
why do you say that?
We're through. Homo sapiens through. Not just because Professor Hawkins, 2004, Professor Hawkins, the great physicist from Cambridge who died a few years ago, while he could still talk, or he didn't have to have a machine talking for him, said, and I'm paraphrasing it, we're on an average planet. It's inconceivable that there's not another average planet that has life. We just haven't found it yet. Whether we ever find it or not is questionable. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we have the brain, a slightly educated or elevated, he used the word elevated chimpanzee.
It's a very small difference.
Yeah, but not that bright. Okay. Number three, we're satiated. Okay. And we're lazy. Okay. We're through. The human being, Homo sapien, has reached its apex. He said this in 2004, and he was referring to data from 2000. In 2014, I'm a little slower, not quite as smart as Hawkins was. As I said in 2014, based on all and having dealt with the three sovereign funds, all these governments and all these prime ministers, chancellors, presidents, we're through. We don't have the stomach. We don't have the grit.
Dan?
Well, no, just let me finish. You know.
Go ahead.
Okay. So we got two Polacks that can do it, but that's not the planet. That's not the planet. And maybe that's your gig yourself. God bless you. God bless you. I know better. All these smart people don't come to me because I don't know better. I'm the only guy that you will ever meet that predicted negative oil in 2000. I'm the only one. How come I knew that? I'm the only one that predicted parity between the dollar and the pound in 1984. How did I know that? Because I'm a smart motherfucker. And I assimilate tons of information. Tons of information. I can do it all at once. You know, I can play 5 games of chess, canasta, jerk off, and, blow my nose all at the same time.
And win.
And win. Thank you. The opposite part of it. And win. But I wore a dunce cap the first 5 years of school. I shit my pants. They wouldn't let me go to the toilet. Shit running down my legs. I mean, I was humiliated when I go back to the grammar school and the principal's crying. The principal, a cute little lady, she says, why do you give us money? I said, because I never want to forget. Never.
May I disagree with you?
Sure.
Because I work with entrepreneurs. I work with young 30-plus entrepreneurs. And the stuff they invent, the things they solve, in a small country like Poland, impresses me.
Good.
Impresses me tremendously. And you're right, 2 Poles will not save the world. But in a charge of Vienna, if the Poles could serve Europe, maybe there's going to be some...
They had 45,000 charging down that hill. And those days, what I call the glorious days of the Renaissance and stuff like that, and the Industrial Revolution. But we're going through another revolution now. It's not the industrial, whatever they call this high tech. I'm making a speech next year, about AI, and this proposition that people are trying to sell that AI is not going to reduce jobs is a lie. It's just a fucking lie, complete utter lie. But the kids want to believe it. 25 years from now, we're going to have about at least 50% less in the workforce.
There is a very good quote. I don't remember who said it, but it stuck with me. AI will not reduce your jobs. The people who know how to talk to AI and use it will take your jobs.
Yeah, the difference is still the same. I mean, we're going to have less people.
Of course.
And we're going to have...
more automation.
They're coming up with a new word about automation. It's like one of the things I'm supposedly an expert, and not supposedly, I am an expert, is climate change, global warming. I know for a fact that for the past 15, 20 years, a scientific solution for climate change is in the works. It's been worked at Cambridge, MIT, Caltech, amongst a few other great universities. And it's not dissimilar to what we did during the Vietnam War, where we defoliated the forests of Vietnam so we could bomb them easier from a mist that comes down from the sky. Okay, it created Agent Orange, which people are still dying from. Okay, it's along those lines, and a lot of the big money is backing it. About a month ago, Mr. Zuckerberg. It was a little teeny thing on a Google alert. Invested $350 million in a Agent Orange-like thing to help alleviate climate change. Okay, and a lot of big guys.
Reflect the sunlight in the upper atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. But the real big money, the money you don't know,
is
been investing in water and water rights for over 50 years. The reason why
drinkable water or farming water?
No, drinkable water, okay? The reason why the Rockefellers and the Ford Foundation and Sir Richard Branson and Bill Gates are the biggest landowners in the United States isn't for the land, it's for the water rights. That's going to be where you have to send guards to go get your water, okay?
When it's hot, you're thirsty.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's going to be back. You've seen the movies, the Mad Max movies with Mel Gibson? Well, the new Mad Max movie is pretty good. It's a year or two old. It's not with him because he's too old to do that now. But it's going to be not in my lifetime, not in your lifetime, and maybe, hopefully, not in your children's lifetime. But that's where we're going to be back to, like caveman days. A good-looking woman walks by, I hit the guy with a stone and take her. That's where we're headed back. That's where we're headed. I was going to start today's lecture with a film I like to use. It shows that if somebody, by mistake or on purpose, presses the first atomic bomb, in 42 minutes, about 6 to 7 billion people are gone because that was a chain reaction, everybody. 42 minutes. And that's why nobody pushes the button, obviously. But I know back in the day, in the 60s, I knew some of those guys that were like wackos that had the ability to push buttons. And thank God they're all old like me, maybe dead. But there is a crazy out there. There is. And they'll blame it on he's a rogue general, or he's a rogue admiral, or he's a rogue this. But my theory is, and my model works, the more chaos there is, the better my model works. The more fear, we are the succession plan you never planned for. I am the succession plan you never planned for. And even though Andrew Carnegie didn't begin it for that reason, he began it to fill his own filthy little pockets. But all these guys are hard as nails. And even with all the geniuses, let's say you got more than two. Let's say you have 200 or 2,000 or 20,000. They don't have a tenth of the orneriness, hellishness, temerity, grit as those guys I've just described. Elon Musk would rather commit seppuku, suicide, than fail. You don't have any kids like that. Or if you have them, there's one or two. I was one of those kids.
Do we need more?
Absolutely. To survive, we need more.
But it's always the small group of the crazy people
Oh, well,
that changes the
I
world.
know that's
yeah?
what Apple, yeah, okay, Apple. And Apple has changed the world. But Apple, the Zuckerberg's changed the world.
For better.
I don't carry a cell phone. Okay. The rich guy I told you I was spent a couple of days with, his phone rang maybe 6 or 7 times in 2 days. He takes emails on his phone like you probably do.
But my phone doesn't ring.
Okay.
And emails don't count that often.
The Elon and Bill, 1, don't carry phones. 2, don't get their emails on their phones. None of the big guys do. Elon and Bill have one thing in common. They limit their meetings to 5 minutes each. Well, I don't have the meetings. So, I mean, that's better than 5 minutes each. You have to go through 2 or 3 filters. Now, arguably, my system is vulnerable to who is doing the filtering.
But you choose the people.
And they're all long-term. Okay? I had different people 30 years ago. And now they're 26 years, 17 years, 17 years, 15 years, and 25 years.
Why did you change the people?
Because they couldn't be tough enough. They considered saying no. They rather be liked than effective.
That's a super important thing, that being liked
I don't suffer from that.
is like an anchor. It's not a sale.
No. And in sales, you'll understand this. There's a difference between a suspect and a prospect.
Of course.
Okay? And most people are dealing with suspects, not prospects. And I can smell, I know if he, she, or it is a decision maker like that. And now when I was young, not as young as you, but a little younger than you, I was rude about it. As soon as I figured it out, I would just hang out. I didn't say, thank you for your time, go kiss my ass. I just hung up. Now, I wish I hadn't done that, because I'm sure I hurt people's feelings in those days, but I don't suffer from 2 things, empathy or sympathy. I don't suffer from those. I consider those diseases in business.
So what makes you strong, or what made you strong in business?
Well, I mean, the same thing that makes me strong today. But now, today is I know how to pick people. I'll give you an example. I have a superstar, a young kid, billionaire, started when he was 15. He was a billionaire. He became a billionaire during Corona, and he was 18 then. And he's had 23 people on his board of directors, 23.
It's
3
a large
chairmen,
board.
2, I mean, because he doesn't know. What do you know at 17? Nothing, right? And he's picked poor people, or poor choices, okay? Well, when I made a bunch of money and I made 1.5 billion slots, I had the same, same guys I started with, I finished with, only 1 died. I know how to pick people.
What's the magic?
The magic is, it's not my personality, not to be a mini-me, but their desire to create change by making wealth. Wealth creation. Sometimes it's for themselves, sometimes it's for somebody else. And in my particular case, I started for myself, and I realized that unless I show literally now millions of people how to do this, I'm not going to get credit till I'm dead 100 years, that I created a method, or I refined a method for poor people with no money. Because the whole basis, the real basis of my money is I don't put any money, we don't borrow any money. There's no money in our deals. 0.
It's just the people.
Correct.
And you pick them.
And I pick them. Now, 99% of the people that have benefited from the QLA methodology, I've never met. I've trained at the castle maybe 2,000 people, and I've trained in open seminars, the free kind of seminars I used to give. The last one was in 1999 at Heathrow Airport. We had about 700 or 800 people there for free. Okay? And they complained, the food's not hot. You have vegan. Fuck. Anyway, but we've got 56 billionaires. We've got not every day, but 4 or 5 times a week, I get email, or one of those 5 people I told you about gets email. You know, it took me longer. I know I'm just a knucklehead engineer. It took me, but my first deal. And in our deal, if you do it the way the steps say, in Britain you're a short millionaire because the pound is high. But if you're in America, you're a millionaire with one deal. That's the 2/3 of the deal that equates or is your portion. The other third is with the other dream team members, the other boards of director. And after you've done 7 or 8 deals, you're worth about 10 million. And after 25 deals, you're worth about between 25 and 50 million, and so on and so forth. The Hungarian Forrest Gump, who's the largest healthcare provider in Eastern Europe, who used to sell cookies at the mall to buy Christmas presents. And he's done it in 7 years. Well, he was successful after 3 years. But plays tennis with the goddamn, not this means anything, plays tennis with the president of Hungary, and he's a big shit. He's a little guy, but he's a big shit. But he would rather be dead.
Then go back to what he did.
No. He was either going to die failing, and he told his wife, and I'm not, Peter, I'm not telling any secrets. His wife, when they started out, his wife is a school teacher, and he says, you either do this or we divorce, because I'm not going to see you. I want to be gone, which was true. And a byproduct of his success is 4 kids that she wasn't supposed to have any more kids. You get more lead in your pencil when you feel good about yourself.
You do. Dan, absolutely last question of me. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, you're going to be 80 soon.
Do I sound 80?
No, you don't. I wish I sounded with so much energy as you. I was quite impressed when you get out of limo and I came to pick you up, and I was like, wow, it's a big guy. So I can understand that you were intimidating when you were at school. But coming back, from your perspective, when you're going to be talking not to students, but to young entrepreneurs all over the world.
Correct.
South India, Poland, Florida, Long Island, New York, wherever they come from, California. What should they take out of this conversation that we just had?
First thing is, if you're really serious, or even if you're pretending to be serious, you're a pretender. All my information free on my website, go to it. Mm-hmm. The best thing on my website, where you get the most bang for your buck, is my book, Your First 100 Million, which is all digitized. Is that the right word? Digitized. And it was updated in 2019, where I say author's note. I read through the pages, and I say this has changed since then. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Take a look, a hard look, a discerning look of who. If I was going to judge you by the 5 your closest mates, your closest people you hang with, or whatever that word is.
Find it general.
Okay. How would I rate you? Okay. One of the questions I ask of the kids, any kid, would you, if you don't have kids yet, would you want your kids to turn out like you? And to date, in 31 years of coaching, I have not got one single person that said, I want my kid to be like me. I do. Okay, well, fine. That's okay. I would disagree with you. I won't feel sorry for you, but I would lean on the fact that I'm more experienced than you. Okay. The second thing the third thing is that listening to podcasts, as good as your podcast is, isn't mean fuck. Pull the trigger. That's why my mantra is just fucking do it. And you know that you're going to make a mistake. And by Allah's will, God's will, you don't make a mistake in the beginning. Just consider yourself fortunate. It also almost always means if you don't make a mistake first time up, it's because your goal's not high enough. And most of the kids said have low performance goals. Kids don't do what their parents tell them to do. They do what they see their parents do. And in my case, I was almost always gone. I was almost all, in the early days, I traveled by bus across the United States, by Greyhound bus. Okay? You could stay in a Hilton or a Sheraton hotel for $18 a night. Okay? If you were in the military and the reserves, and I was in the reserves a few years. So I used all those things, and it's, people ask me, well, wasn't it demeaning? I said, no, I was in St. Louis and I had to get to Miami, and I couldn't afford a plane ticket. So I took a bus. They used to have a similar lower rate in trains. So I've done all that. I've slept in airports. There was a movie with Tom Hanks about 15, 20 years ago about him getting caught in an airport. I've slept in airports. Okay, I know what that is. I've slept in at bus stations, and the kids won't do that. Now maybe you've got two
Kids?
They would know. Two kids that would sleep at a bus station. I doubt it.
I've walked around hungry.
Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you.
You're talking about kids.
The kids, the entrepreneurs you're talking about. Okay? Talk's cheap. They don't do it. I've been doing it. I didn't really start keeping accurate records till 2000 because I didn't think I was going to do this past 2000. So from 1993 to 2000, my records are helter-skelter. But from 2000, I've got data, up to yin-yang. And my favorite data point, or one of my favorite data points, why do you say men are getting weak? Okay, and why is woke so prevalent with males now? In 1986, the average handshake of a man, okay, was 102 pounds pressure. For a woman, 81 pounds pressure. That's 1986. Fast forward to 2016.
What is it?
Okay. For a woman, it's 10 pounds pressure higher. For a man, it's 15 lower. You notice now, before women, it wasn't considered, if you went to some of the finer schools in America, finishing schools, it wasn't considered for a woman polite to have a firm handshake. Now you shake hands with some of these gals. I've got a Dutch girl who's 26 years old. You'd think that she's the arm wrestling champion of North America. They have, and there's a way they put their fingers forward on the handshake to make it, anyway. Men have become wussified. My daughter, who's going to be, in fact, yesterday was her birthday. I remembered it, thankfully. She is 37, and she works for a big Fortune 100 company. She's a senior manager. And the staff that she has and her boss, I probably wouldn't have hired.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.